He was a comedian who played a fake president on TV, until the world made him a real one, facing off against Vladimir Putin in a war no one thought he'd survive. Volodymyr Zelenskyy wasn't supposed to be a wartime leader. He wasn't even supposed to be a president. But in 2019, this former comedian and political outsider stunned Ukraine by winning the presidency. Just a few years later, he would be thrust into the center of the biggest war in Europe since World War II. This is the real story of how a man from the stage ended up standing between democracy and one of the world's most feared authoritarian regimes. Volodymyr Zelenskyy was born in 1978 in a heavily industrialized city in central Ukraine, which once was a cog in the vast machinery of the Soviet Union. It was a place of coal dust, iron mines, and thick smog, where steel and sweat built the skyline. Life in such an industrial city was tough and unglamorous, and so was the post-Soviet world Zelenskyy grew up in. After Ukraine gained independence in 1991, it was left with a broken economy, rampant corruption, and a generation that had to navigate freedom without a roadmap. Zelenskyy came from a family that was educated but also modest. His father was a computer science professor and his mother was an engineer. His Jewish heritage was quietly present but rarely discussed, especially in a country still haunted by the traumas of World War II. You see, his grandfather fought the Nazis in the Red Army. The rest of his grandfather's family, including 3 brothers, perished in the Holocaust. From a young age, Zelenskyy was sharp, quick-witted, and unusually charismatic. He chose to study law at Kyiv National Economic University, but his real passion was performance. He rarely stepped foot in a courtroom. Instead, he threw himself into comedy. In his early 20s, he joined Kvartal 95, a comedy troupe that toured post-Soviet countries and eventually became a media powerhouse. What made Zelenskyy stand out wasn't just his timing or talent. It was his uncanny ability to connect. His sketches skewered corrupt politicians and made him a household name. By his 30s, Zelenskyy wasn't just a comedian anymore. He was one of Ukraine's biggest celebrities, an actor, producer, and a businessman. But it was just one particular role he would play that would change everything. In 2015, Zelenskyy starred in a political satire called Servant of the People. He played character named Vasil Holoborodko, a high school history teacher who accidentally becomes president after a viral video captures his rant against government corruption. The show was a big hit, funny, bold, and painfully accurate. However, beneath the comedy was a deeper fantasy. What if an honest, everyday person could actually lead a country? Ukrainians, weary from years of corruption, economic struggles, and war in the East, saw something more than entertainment. They saw a possibility. By 2018, the line between fiction and reality had all but vanished. Zelenskyy announced he was running for president. Under a brand new political party he named Servant of the People. Just like the show if you didn't notice. Critics scoffed. Pundits rolled their eyes. His opponents mocked him as a clown. But the people of Ukraine, they listened. You see, Zelenskyy ran not as a politician, but as the anti-politician. He spoke plainly. He campaigned on social media instead of rallies. He promised to break the old system, to end the oligarchic control and bring peace with Russia without sacrificing Ukraine's sovereignty. And in April 2019, in a stunning landslide, he won over 73% of the vote. He defeated incumbent Petro Poroshenko, a seasoned politician and billionaire with nothing but charm, authenticity, and the desperate hopes of a weary country. He had no political experience, no governing background. But Zelenskyy walked into the presidential palace with one thing no one could fake: the trust of the people. Now, does that remind you of anyone? Let us know in the comments section. Anyway, that trust would soon be tested in ways no one could imagine. To understand what happened next, we need to rewind long before Zelenskyy entered politics. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine became independent, but Russia never truly let go. You see, Ukraine's location made it a geopolitical prize. It bordered the EU, hosted pipelines that carried Russian gas to Europe, and held Crimea, a strategic Black Sea peninsula that Russia considered it as its own. In 2014, Russia invaded and annexed Crimea, and pro-Russian rebels took up arms in the Donbas region. Here is when Ukraine's military was caught off guard. The West offered sanctions, but no troops. Nearly 14,000 people died over the next 8 years in a low-intensity war. Zelenskyy campaigned on making peace. He tried to revive negotiations. He met with President Putin, he floated compromises, but none of it worked. Instead of peace, Putin saw weakness. He believed Zelenskyy, young, inexperienced, a former comic, wasn't up to the task. And worse for Putin, Zelenskyy wasn't playing the Russian game. He was leaning west, toward NATO, toward the EU, toward democracy. You see, Russia has long feared NATO expansion. Ukraine joining NATO was, to Putin, a direct threat. In reality, Ukraine wasn't close to joining NATO, but Putin couldn't afford the idea. At the same time, Ukraine was shedding its Russian identity. Language laws made Ukrainian dominant. Soviet monuments came down. Zelenskyy, a Russian-speaking Jew, ironically became a symbol of Ukrainian nationalism. Putin's worldview couldn't handle this. To him, Ukraine was not a real country. In a now infamous essay, he argued that Russians and Ukrainians were one people, that Ukraine had no history, that Ukraine was Western-occupied, that Ukraine must return. Zelenskyy rejected all of it. In early 2022, 19,000 Russian troops massed around Ukraine. The world watched, but many did not believe that Putin would do it. Zelenskyy warned the public, but also tried to keep calm. There is no full-scale war, he said. Then, on February 24, 2022, Russian missiles lit up the sky. Tanks rolled across the border. Kyiv was under attack. Western intelligence offered Zelenskyy a way out, a ride out of the country. And his reply became legendary. "I need ammunition, not a ride." That was the moment that changed everything. Zelenskyy, the comic-turned-politician, transformed into a wartime leader almost overnight. He filmed messages from bunkers. He rallied the public. He became the face of the Ukrainian resistance. Dressed in military olive green, speaking in simple language, he united his country. His speeches went viral. He addressed parliaments across the world. He pushed for weapons, sanctions, aid, and he got them all. Ukraine's military, once underestimated, held Kyiv. Then they pushed back. While the war kept dragging on, Ukraine kept standing. Zelenskyy became more than a national leader. He became a symbol. To Europe, he was a call to defend democracy. To the US, a reminder of courage and resolve. To autocrats, an unexpected challenge. And to Putin, a personal humiliation. The man he thought was a joke was outmaneuvering him diplomatically and on the battlefield. But of course, not everything has been smooth. Zelenskyy has faced criticism for banning opposition parties during the war. Some say democracy in wartime Ukraine has limits. Others worry about corruption returning as billions in Western aid flood in. He's also had to navigate pressure from allies. Push too hard and he risks losing support. Settle too soon and Ukraine could be carved up. Peace remains elusive. So does NATO membership. The country is scared. Cities lie in ruins. Millions displaced. Tens of thousands dead. And yet, Ukraine stands. In the end, Volodymyr Zelenskyy wasn't trained for this. He didn't climb the political ladder. He didn't spend years in backroom negotiations or foreign policy briefings. He was a performer. But maybe that's what Ukraine needed. A man who knew how to talk to people, how to inspire, how to lead not with theory but with presence. From comedian to president, from sitcom to shellfire, Zelenskyy has become something no one expected. The leader of a nation reborn under fire. Now watch this next video to learn about another celebrity who became a leader without having to climb the political ladder. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.